Welcome back to Interviews with the Pros, the podcast where we sit down with the people shaping corporate events from every angle, not just the planners, but the experts in the industry we've had the pleasure to work with at KCI. We'll speak with strategists, marketing executives, global events leaders, entrepreneurs, technologists, and all kinds of specialists in the different areas that make the industry move. I'm your host of the series, Kimberly Clark, CEO and founder of KCI Management and Maestra. With 3 decades in corporate events and thousands of programs behind me, I've learned that excellence doesn't live in one role. It lives across the ecosystem. But today, I'm excited to share that we're shaking things up again, where Belle O'Neill, one of our key content coordinators at Maestra, is joined by Anne Crockett, a senior operations coordinator at KCI Management. In this episode, they'll be talking about launching a career in events and exploring different strategies and techniques to open doors and burst through them to land your career. This conversation offers a look into Anne's key learnings early in her career journey and insights you may not otherwise get exposure to if you stay in your own lane. I'm particularly excited about this episode. Let's get into it.
I'm so excited to be sitting down, and let's give everyone a little bit of context and introduce each other, but in a fun way. You know that childhood question, what do you want to be when you grow up? Well, what did you want to be when you grew up? And now that you're all grown up, are you that?
That's a funny question to me. Also hysterical that you think I'm all grown up. As you and I have joked about quite often, I do not feel like I'm an adult at all. If anything, we're baby adults, right? We're still in our 20s, so we're still baby adults. But growing up, I think I wanted to be a lot of different things, but after doing, I had a big family, and so we would plan different dinners, and I would set out the table cards and do all of these things, and everyone was like, oh, she's going to be a wedding planner. Because also, for most people, you hear events, and they're like, oh, you're going to be a wedding planner. So I think I wanted to do maybe that a little bit, but I didn't fully understand what events was until I got a little bit older.
And how'd that change for you as you got older, if you wanted to start in weddings? And I know maybe it's helpful to tell people you do have a little bit of background in weddings. If I'm not mistaken, your first events job was actually in weddings.
Yeah, so my first job in events, I kind of jumped around a lot. When I was in college, I worked for a startup and did some tech stuff during COVID, lots of virtual events. And my big job in college, though, was I worked for a catering company. So we did all sorts of things. We did weddings, but we also did corporate events and nonprofit events and everything. And it was at the Philadelphia Museum of Art and the Barnes Foundation, both in Philadelphia. And so those jobs kind of showed me all the different types of events, and I got to see fun things that I liked and fun things, things that you didn't, because the reality of it is a job, so not every part is glamorous. But in that job, I loved doing weddings. And then through networking, actually, when I was in college, I met this woman who was starting a nonprofit for weddings. And essentially, it's a social enterprise. So the money that they made from planning weddings went towards funding programs for survivors of domestic abuse and human trafficking. It's called Andre Collective. It's still active today. Well, I'm not a part of their staff anymore. It's a wonderful organization that I love to shout out when I can. But that's kind of where I got my start, and they put a lot of faith in me because it was a small nonprofit, and I was newer to the industry, but I had some experience, so I kind of got thrown in as an assistant, and then I worked my way up to running my own weddings. And so I did weddings, and it was great, but once I got to see the corporate side of things, I realized that was really where my passions lie, not only because of a little bit more balance. Working weekends all the time is really hard. That's all I did through college in catering. But I think corporate gives more of a challenge to me that I really enjoy. And there's more variety. With weddings, yes, every wedding's different and you're doing different designs and different things, but at the end of the day, you're getting them down the aisle, then you're getting them to their dinner, you're going to do your formalities at dinner, and then you're going to make sure that they have a great exit and make sure that the bride and groom are fed, that their families are fine, all of the things. And I totally just dumbed down the entire wedding planning process, so there's no backlash or anything on anyone who does weddings. I have mad respect for them. But to me, I've really liked the intricacies of working in corporate.
Well, you mentioned two key things that bring me to my next question statement for you: networking and working in corporate events. So one thing that we love to do on interviews with the pros is usually, we ask our guests how they know the host, in which case everybody's new to both of us on this episode. And I'm actually gonna steal your spotlight for a second because I'd love to tell people how I got the pleasure of knowing you. As people listening to this may or may not know, Anne's been at KCI a lot longer than I am, and in the first month, I think it was, maybe even less than that, of being at KCI, I got a wonderful Teams message from this rising star Anne that I had heard so much about but hadn't had the chance to actually meet yet, asking to join a group call. And I think another wonderful thing about KCI that, we like to brag about so much is a lot of people that are at KCI, they come and they stay. So what that also means is that we don't have too many people that are early in our careers. I think there's only 5 of us. And so the way that I know Anne is because she actually reached out to me and wanted to start a monthly call with the 5 of us where we could really lean on each other and grow and share challenges and wins and be a support system. And I just think that speaks so much to your character about networking and connecting with other people.
Yeah, thank you. And honestly, I've said this to you too, but that call is one of my favorite calls that we have every month. And I think KCI really gave me the opportunity last fall to be a buddy to an incoming KCIer who was just in my position just a year later, right out of college. So getting to be her buddy was super wonderful. And because I had worked on a lot of different programs and stuff, had the pleasure of working with all of the, we call ourselves the 20-somethings, but I had a lot of opportunity to work with everyone, but I knew that they weren't getting to talk to each other. And I think in our industry and in our company, it's just really important to lean on each other and have a place to share those wins. We have our functional huddle calls and everything, but it's also nice to have a more informal space, especially because we work remote, to show that we're still humans and we can talk about our lives and, everything will get done. And having a place to be this feels like a fire drill, and have everyone else be okay, we see what you're saying, but think about this perspective, and you don't need to get so worked up about this thing. We're not saving lives. So I think that really is my favorite part about that group. And yeah.
Okay, so I know you and I like to joke around a lot about kickstarting our careers and being young, but I do want to highlight you for a second because you are a prime example of what it looks like to kickstart your career. And I'm going to brag about you a little bit more because you were just recently promoted to Senior Operations Coordinator this spring. Can you walk us through what that promotion looked like and what really the changes in your role were from being a program coordinator to the role you have now?
Yeah. Well, thank you very much, and I'm very proud of that accomplishment. It's something that I worked really hard for, and it certainly wasn't linear. So I'm coming up on 2 years at KCI, and at the end of last year, it was around last summer, I had hit a few bumps in the road with my workload and just trying to manage everything and learning everything. And I'm always one to raise my hand, and I want them to keep giving me things and to keep trying things, and I'm never going to say no. But it did hit a point where I almost said yes too much. And then we hit that capacity, and I think that really was the biggest learning lesson for me, because I saw, okay, just as it's important to raise your hand and want to help, it's also important to be realistic about your capabilities and how much is on your plate and how much you can handle. Luckily, KCI is lovely and really worked with me during that. And so from that moment forward, I looked at what I was doing and I was okay, how can I up level? How can I change things? And some feedback I had gotten really spurred my growth within this past year. So one of those things was thinking ahead and being proactive and coming to the table with solutions as opposed to questions. So, a simple thing I did really was just, instead of going to my manager, my program lead, whatever it is, with a question, I would go to them and say, this is the situation. Here's my recommendation. What do you think? That simple switch and taking those 5 extra minutes to think about it yourself shows that you A, care about what you're working on, but B, it shows the people that you're working with that you understand and that you're trying to think harder and deeper about the problems that you're working on. So that was one big thing for me that really, helped to spur that promotion. But I think another is really taking ownership of your area. When you're in the positions that we're in, when you're in a coordinator role, you're not necessarily owning a ton. But when you are owning things, taking full responsibility, being ahead of the game with it, working on your timelines so that taking into account your own schedule, really, because the reality of it is we all have lives. So if I know that I'm going to be out at the end of this month, what do I need to do now? And what did I need to do last month in order to set myself up for success when I'm out? And so that my team doesn't feel like they're left high and dry. And I was working on a technical piece of a program, a pretty big technical piece. And really, sometimes it's not the most exciting thing. But when you lean into something and you're able to build those skills, I can guarantee you that it becomes more enjoyable. I think we all like to be good at things. We all like to feel successful in what we're doing. So that's not going to be the case with everything that you work on. But if you're working on something consistently and you take the time to say, hey, this might not be my favorite, but if I lean into it, I could get really good at it. It'll make the experience more enjoyable for you, A, but B, it'll show the people around you that like, hey, we gave her a challenge and she stepped up. Like she leaned into it and took it on. So I think those were two big things that led to my promotion. But I would say the difference in my roles, it's interesting because KCI is really big on they aren't going to promote you until they know that you are already capable of that next role. So for me, my role hasn't changed all that much. In this past year, they were giving me the challenges that they needed me to get to be like, okay, she now has earned that title. So I'm owning a program from end to end on my own this year. That's new. It's a smaller program, but it's still a big deal to be able to do that and own it. Last year, I worked with one of our managers above me, and she really tried to pass as much to me as she possibly could to get me into that practice. So going into this year, I feel super confident about it. I think another thing is I'm owning a big piece or a decent sized chunk of a larger program. So I'm owning housing for a program of like 2,000 people, but our housing block is like peak 360 on its peak nights. But we have multiple contracts, multiple courtesy blocks, and I'm in charge of that. And if you had asked me a year ago if I liked housing, I would have told you absolutely not, and that it was one of the hardest things in my job, and it was boring. And now, kind of like what I just talked about, I really leaned into it, and I was like, okay, how can I get good at this? And now I love my housing tracker. I'm a nerd. Belle knows this, but like if I'm going through a tracker, I'll show my little chart, and like I just love going through all of those things. And I think taking those challenges and even the small things that people give to you and turning them into an opportunity for you to take over and own it is the best way to continue to grow in your career, because we're not always going to like what we're working on. That's the reality of it.
And I just want to lean into something that you said, because I giggled to myself when you brought up the part about needing to be perfect and kind of letting that go a little bit, because, we joke about it all the time in KCI, and I'm sure in the broader events industry too, that we are an industry full of crazy type A people whose calendars have calendars. And, it's to your point, letting go of perfection for a lot of us isn't easy, but it's so necessary in order to get ahead. And so I'd love for us to dive into a little bit of what your day-to-day looks like and really how that can differ to the weeks leading up to a program versus what you do on site. And can you walk us through those essentially two different roles and how they play together?
Yeah, absolutely. And I love that you mentioned the element of surprise. I think no one really tells you what your day-to-day is going to look like, whether you're in school. I went to school for hospitality and events, and no one told me, oh, this is how your job's going to look this day, and this is how it's going to look that day. That's also because every job is different. But I think that's something to be said for our industry just being so vastly different. And so it's really important to be able to adapt to that change and take it on the chin, kind of like what we talked about before, even if it's something new or hard for you. And I think we give our clients a playbook, but no one's ever going to give you a playbook for your career. So really leaning into those surprises is my biggest piece of advice, truly. But my day-to-day is very different. It depends on what program I'm working on. Right now, I am the lead for housing on a program, and then I'm registration support. Basically, I'm the last line of defense to make sure that our client is getting the most out of their contract and for their money. So that's kind of what it looks like on the housing side. On the registration side, I'm building a registration site, putting in their agenda pieces. I'm working through how that integrates with their actual event website and tracking numbers, pickups, and then in that lies in, registration. I get dietary information, I get accessibility information, and so reporting that out to my team so that they can better put in numbers with their different vendors and everything. So that's really what a lot of my before work is looking like now. As we get closer, I'll be working on EROs, which an event running order or run of show, basically are like minute by minute. I'll be working on that, placing an Amazon order. One of my favorite things to do before I go on site is help make the dinner reservations. Love doing that. So those types of things. But then when you get on site, I think the thing is you really have to change your mindset. So you're not prepping anymore. You're on site. So if there's a problem, or something goes wrong, you have to look at it and be like, okay, that stinks. That's not how we wanted it to go. We can figure out the why after. In that moment, not saying why and spiraling, saying, okay, this is the situation. What are we going to do to fix it? How are we going to change this so that it works still for the event? And maybe it's even better for the client in the end. So I think changing that mindset is big. I think also there's something to be said for us working remote most of the time and then going on site and being very people facing. It's a lot of people time, especially when you're at a registration desk. You're talking to 1,500 people in a day, welcoming them into an event, continuing to keep that attitude of positivity and welcoming them into the space. So that can definitely get tiring, but it is a really fun part, and it makes those times when you're maybe not working with people as much worth it because you got a good balance. But also running around on site and helping someone move the box. On site, yes, I'm still my housing lead and the registration support, but on site, I'm helping to scan in a session. I'm running upstairs to general session to help with seating. I'm going to check a food and beverage set because our food and beverage person might be checking something else. On site, you really have to come together as a team, and yes, you're in charge of your own areas and you're that subject matter expert essentially for your own area, but you're trying to share that information with the people around you so that we can all help each other because we all have the same goal, making sure that the attendee has a good experience and getting through the event with positive numbers, positive impact. So I think it's a really big shift, and we're very team focused at home as well, but at home I'm not necessarily being like, okay, I don't know how I feel about this chicken entree, because food and beverage isn't my spot. So if they ask for my opinion, yes, maybe I'll go share it. But whereas I'm on site and something's not in the right spot, it doesn't matter what area it is. If you notice it, tell someone. Bring it up to your team, because the worst case is that you brought up something that they already caught and it's said twice. That's the worst case scenario. And if that's the worst case scenario, you should be saying everything, in my opinion.
The next thing I wanted to talk to you about, I said it earlier, and you're a rock star example of what it looks like to really take off early in your career. And that for you started before your actual career started. You didn't just come into the career world and say, okay, I'm going to try. You really kickstarted what this all looked like back in university. And I did a little bit of digging through our conversations and also on my own. And we talked about, working as a wedding planner while you were in university, but you also did a lot of other volunteerings and clubs and networking. Can you speak to that a little bit?
Yeah, for sure. So I went to Temple University in Philadelphia, go Owls, and I went to the School of Sport, Tourism, and Hospitality Management. The events management program was growing while I was there. So while I wasn't able to do a major in events, I ended up doing a minor in event and entertainment management, which was great. And I loved those classes. But it also meant that I had to lean more into the hospitality and tourism side, which taught me a lot of good things. But my biggest piece of advice is when you're looking, if you know that this is the industry you want to go into, but you still want to get your degree, whatever it is, look for programs that are experience-based. My program was not based on our classroom learning. The majority of my program was the things outside of the classroom. So we had to do 2 internships. Your junior year, you do a part-time internship. You get credit for it, and you can get paid. So both of mine were paid, which was a blessing because, you know, it's hard to have a job and not get paid. Unpaid internships are really difficult. So if anyone has ever had one, I give you a lot of credit because I know that that is not an easy thing to do. But in my case, both of mine were paid, but you get credit for them. So my junior year, I got like 3 credit hours, and then my senior year, your final semester, is a full-time internship, and you get 12 credits, 15 credits, something. It's basically your full semester, and you work full-time, 9 to 5. So that's point A, and they help you to get those internships. And so having those 2 experiences alone coming out of college is a resume builder. Then we also had to do this thing called industry hours, which basically was those volunteer things. So for me, a lot of my industry hours came from an internship that I had during COVID, which was, I was at the very beginning of my career, and it was at that startup working in remote events. So I did that, and then I also did the weddings, which I got some industry hours for, but I also did fun pop-up events. I've had the opportunity to go to a lot of really cool events. I did the World Series when the Phillies were in the World Series and they were here. We went to Game 4 with Stand Up to Cancer and got to help with all of that. It was a super long day, but we were in charge of like getting flyers out and doing different things and talking to people about their journeys and the reasons that they were there. And so I did that. I did a bunch of random, like, even corporate event pop-ups in Philly that needed volunteers to sit at a registration desk or be a human arrow. A human arrow sounds like a very silly thing, but it's very real. And if you ever need to be a human arrow, I would do it because you get to see a lot of really cool things and you're basically a people mover. But I also, when I was working at the catering company, I got to go to the Super Bowl, which was sick.
Wow.
I didn't see the Super Bowl, but I was there in Arizona, in Phoenix, and was a part of this big tailgate beforehand because my catering company had won the bid to be the exclusive caterer. So there are a lot of different cool opportunities that I really leaned into. And I think beyond that, not just going to those events, but meeting people and taking their contact information and staying connected. I was in a part of the Event Planning Association, which was a student chapter of PCMA. That was huge. I went to PCMA, their conference. I went 2 years. I went in Columbus, Ohio, and then I went in San Diego, California. And those I was able to really see more of what an association corporate side of events looks like, which turned my brain to, maybe this is something I would like to do. And I've stayed connected with a bunch of those people. I almost moved to Boston, funny enough. So I reached out to a lot of people via LinkedIn through other connections and said, hey, I think I want to move to Boston. Can I meet this person in your network? And 9 times out of 10, if you ask someone, they're willing to give you an introduction. So I think my biggest, I know I've said this, my biggest piece of advice, but a big piece of advice that I have is to do these opportunities and to treat them as if it's going to get you your next job. Treat it as if you are going to meet these people and they're going to make a change in your life. Because the worst case scenario is you took it too seriously. Okay, you know what? I took middle school too seriously. I was crying about a math test in 7th grade. I took it too seriously, but I'm still okay. I'm here. And I would so much rather someone's impression of me be that she's serious about her work than, oh, she just did this to get the hours and check it off the checklist.
And you know what? This is actually a question I was going to ask you a little bit down the line, but I think this is a great time to build it on because of what you're saying. And I think, again, you're really good at it, is it's not just doing it until you get the job. It's doing it once you've got the job. And I'd love to hear you talk about that and like your approach to networking now that you're in the role, because that is something I know about you, is you stay on people's calendars, like whether it's your coworkers, whether it's your senior leaders, whether it's your program managers. It's that, okay, you got the job, you're where you want to be, but the networking doesn't stop just because you got the role. So can you talk a little bit about kind of how you manage that, like what your mindset is behind it and how you make it a goal to prioritize doing that?
Yeah, of course. I mean, I think from square one, I really like people. I'm a people person. I love talking to people. I love hearing their stories. I love learning from people. And so when I came into this job, my first week here at KCI, our president put time on my calendar, Miss Liz Fitzgibbons, who has also been on this podcast. And she put time on my calendar my first week, and that really hit home for me. I was like, how is she making time for me, her brand new employee, in this busy schedule? And to me, I was like, oh, okay, like they will make time. And then also, I think it's pretty common for someone who's higher up, if you're getting to talk to them and you're newer in your career. I won't say like this is always the case, but a lot of times they're like, put time on my calendar. When someone tells you to put time in their calendar, do it. Move things, do it. Because they're 90% of the time, they're not just saying it. Also, if they have to move the meeting because they have something else and they have to push it a few weeks, it's fine. Because 99% of the time, the calls that I go into with a Kimberly, with a Liz, I don't have a necessary agenda. I'm more so going in to talk about life, see how they're doing. And then a lot of times, those are the conversations where you get the inside scoop. Kimberly tells me what's coming with Maestra. Liz tells me what's happening with our clients and different things. And it gives you an opportunity to ask questions and to go in and say, hey, I heard you just said this. Why did you say it like that? I think something Kimberly and I talk about a lot too is that there is a business aspect of what we do and how our clients and our different programs that we work on impact our business as KCI. And that's something that I've just been interested in. So it's easy for me to say, oh, I'm going to make time to chat with Kimberly. But I also think if you're strapped for time and in a busy period, don't force it. I do it a few months out. Normally I'll look at my calendar and be like, oh, I think I'm going to have a little bit of time, and I'll place them strategically. And then if they need to move, they move. But I think it's really important to be grateful too and acknowledge the people that have helped you get to where you are. Because I wouldn't still be in this position and continuing to be like working towards a higher position if it weren't for the time that a Kimberly gave me, that a Liz gave me. And even Nicola, who helped me get this job. We haven't chatted in a while, but we still stay connected on LinkedIn. I send her a text. She has a big event coming up as we're speaking, and I'm going to send her a message and say, good luck. I hope that everything goes wonderful, because those small notes keep you in someone's head. So it keeps them thinking about you. And then if someone sees something, if Nicola sees something next week or Kimberly sees something and it reminds them of me, they'll probably come back to me. But if I'm not making that effort, then you can't expect anyone to hand you anything. You can't expect to be top of mind for people if you're not putting yourself there.
I mean, that's half the reason why you and I relate so much, is networking has been such a large part of both of our journeys. And I think you're so right in saying, yeah, a lot of senior leaders say, oh, put time on my calendar, but a lot of people don't take advantage of it. Yeah. So they might be saying it to 20 people, but you might be one or two out of the 20 to actually do it. And exactly. To your point, like, networking is so prominent in our world, and it really is a tool. It's really something that can help you excel. But just because somebody gives you the opportunity to be in a room, you have to show up and you have to be in the room, right? And just like you're saying about expressing, whether it's just seeing how they are and remembering that touch point, or focusing on bigger elements like business developments and what's going on with our clients, like, you have the meeting, but it's your responsibility to do something with that or make the most of it. And so, yeah, I definitely, I could talk about that with you for forever, but I know we're kind of running on time, so I'm going to rapid fire 3 last questions at you. The first one, if somebody wanted to do what you do and get involved in the events industry, what do you think the first thing is that they should do? And what is one thing you think they should never do?
Okay. Well, something you should never do, burn a bridge. I don't care if your boss was such a difficult person to work with. Don't burn that bridge. If you can help it, don't burn it. Because if you can leave places with grace and with a head on your shoulders of like, yeah, this wasn't my favorite experience, but it's helping me get to where I want to go, you're going to leave places a lot easier. I have had really great experiences at past jobs and really difficult ones. But when I've left each of them, I haven't said anything that could be negative about them or their business. I try to talk really positively about the people that I interact with and to other people, because that's the other thing. It's a small industry. Don't go around bad-mouthing someone that you work with if in a group where other people could take that back to them. So I think that's a big thing. And that's like a life thing, just trying not to burn bridges. So that's my biggest don't burn a bridge, because you'll never know. I reached out to my manager from the first company that I worked with in 2020 a few weeks ago. So that's 6 years ago. And I sent her a message and asked her for a recommendation for a photographer. And she came back to me like this and was like, oh, absolutely. And then like we were catching up a little bit. If I had left that job in a storm, I wouldn't have been able to get that advice from her. So that's my do not do. My biggest thing that you should do, look for the people around you that you want to be like. If you don't know anyone in the industry, get on LinkedIn. If you don't, or talk to the people around you and maybe they have connections in the industry. I'll be honest, my mom worked at a big tech company and I said, hey, who works in events at your company that I can talk to? My mom had to talk to 3 different people, and those people kept passing me on until I got to Nicola, who helped me get this job. Ask your mom, ask your neighbor, ask your favorite dog in the neighborhood's owner. I don't care who it is, ask people. Because if you don't ask, you will never get the answer, and no one will ever go out on that limb. And what's the worst case they say? No, I don't know anyone that does events. Okay, you move on and you say thank you. Thank you so much for thinking of me. Understood. It's not that difficult. But it is, I don't want to say it's not that difficult. Maybe you can cut that part out.
It's worth it. It's worth it. It's
100%.
Not there for the sake of your career and where it could take you. There are much harder things that you could do to have to get there than hear the word no.
I love that. 100% agree.
What's one skill or trait that you believe is non-negotiable that you have to have for working in this industry?
Ooh, this is a good one. And this might be cliche, but I was going to say detail-oriented, and that would be cliche, but that's actually not what I think. I think it's a proactive and adaptable personality and mindset. Even if in your personal life you hate change, which for the record, I do. I don't do well with change in my personal life. It really disrupts my flow. But in work, I'm rolling with the punches. I'm taking those and I'm adapting to my situation. That is the biggest thing. Be a chameleon. Be able to adapt to your environment that you're in and the different things that you're working on. And yes, still set yourself apart. Don't blend in. But adapt to those changes and the different needs that people will have for you, and you will get far.
Okay, last question, and it's a tough one. What is the best career advice you've been given that you would give to other people?
Okay, so I would say networking, but I think that's kind of cliche. Getting out in your community, we've already talked about that a bunch. But what I do want to say for this audience is I think it could be super helpful, is I was told a amazing question to ask in an interview one time, and every time I asked it in an interview, people were like, oh my gosh, where did you come up with that, once they answered the question. So here's the question, here's my inside scoop. Ask whoever is interviewing you, what does someone who's in the position right now that you're interviewing for do that you want to see in your new candidate, and what is something that they do that you don't want to see continue? You're setting yourself up to say, if I'm in this position, what do you want to see from me and what do you not want to see based on previous things? I'm telling you, I think that's like my secret sauce interview question, and it's really helped me. But it also helps you if you do get the job. Great, now I know. They want me to be like this and they don't want this. Awesome. Here I come. I can adapt. I can take that information and change it into what I need it to be in order to excel in the position.
Wow. That genuinely blew my mind hearing that. I know that it's going to land a lot with other people too. And I just want to give a big thank you for being on Interviews with the Pros, sitting down talking with me, and really just sharing all of your expertise. And I cannot wait for more people to hear you.
Awesome. Thank you. Yeah, I have a little bit of a imposter syndrome being on Interviews with the Pros because I don't necessarily feel like a pro just yet. But I want everyone in the audience to know that you don't have to be a pro. You don't have to be perfect at everything. We talked about that a lot. And just really putting your heart and all of your energy into something that you're doing. Run fast after the bus.
Oh, thank you so much, Anne.
Yeah, thank you.
That brings us to the end of today's conversation with Anne Crockett, Senior Operations Coordinator at KCI. Thank you again, Anne, for sharing your perspective, your experience, and the stellar work you've been doing in event management. I'm so amazed by you. Your insights into the significance of networking and also knowing your limits are incredibly valuable for anyone launching their career in corporate events. If you'd like to see more of what Anne and the KCI team are up to, you can find them at www.kcimanagement.com, where they share more about the value they offer their clients and see what it's like to work with a best-in-class boutique global events agency. Thanks for joining us today. We'll see you next time on Interviews with the Pros.